Our cost was roughly about $25,000 to build each of these. It ended up being a lot lower at the end time because we got the flooring was all donated to us and the brick was all donated to us. So that brings the cost way down. So, but that's what we kind of estimated at the beginning. So we went to just 32 different people and had 32 different people say yes to building at least one of the cottages. And then on the outside is a little plaque that has their name on it.
Right,
that's,
right.
You know,
That's
like
what's
that will
the
stay
Christian
forever.
church.
Yeah. So they gave us $25,000. So that's about how we got the first probably $1.25 million through that kind of fundraising. We did a community campaign that gave us another probably maybe another $1 million, and then the rest was through foundation grants.
And she's real active in the continuum of care.
Yeah.
With
Mhm.
Michelle.
Okay.
Right.
she
Yeah,
met.
so they're all talking.
And then the
Yeah.
emergency solution money comes to that continuum, and then she gets a
We
portion.
we do.
Okay.
We have the emergency solutions, and then we also get some continuum of care funds. None of that funds this program, though. This is all community funded.
And so how was this received by the neighbors? That's always
So there
big
were.
concern.
It was most of the neighborhood had no interest in it at all. Didn't show up. There were about 6 or 7 different households that were very resistant. We sat down with them on probably 6 different occasions and had meetings to talk about what their concerns were and what we could do to help alleviate
Right.
their concerns.
Right.
We added in sidewalk all the way down so they would be walking toward Main instead of through the neighborhoods. We added streetlights in, like we added some things to our project that cost us money to help kind of ease the concerns of the neighborhood.
Right.
For the most part, afterwards, everybody has been very cool. There's one person that lives across the street from us that she was just really hard to get along with through the whole process. And it was, like she threatened my life. She threatened to burn my house down. She's probably never going to be happy
Right.
with what we've done.
Right.
And her issue was we had to cut some trees down to build here, and that was what her anger
And
was.
this land
Right.
was
It wasn't about us being here. It was empty land. It was just big open field with.
part of the
So it's
Griffin
just raw
Memorial.
land.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But this is this is
Yeah,
Griffin
absolutely.
Memorial land.
So it was, yeah. We bought everything from kind of the north end of our property all the way down to the creek side. So we have more land if we wanted to expand on. So that's all of ours.
And was
now.
Griffin owned by the state, or was it?
Griffin is state,
State.
yeah.
The state.
Yeah, it's
So-
a state hospital.
So we worked with them too, and they actually came to us with the idea, like, here we have this land and we'd like it to be used for something that jives with our mission as well. And so they came to
And then you
us.
need to help me because we're officed in where you met Christy Moore over there in
Or
that
CSBI,
the
yeah.
CSBI. That was the Veterans Hospital, right? The state.
I think
Does
it
the
was
city
part
of Norman own it now? No.
It's still owned by the state. They have like a long-term lease with the city, and then it's actually a nonprofit. CSBI is a private nonprofit.
Oh yeah. Well, Christy's on my board, but
Right.
But I couldn't remember how she told me the land was
Yeah, the land
acquired.
is still in state
State.
owned land. Yeah, and it's really interesting because part of Griffin is state and part of it is held in trust, and so it just depends on where they fall in that. I don't really know. So.
We just had some deals with
These are nice.
county and city last night.
Yes, we did. Yep.
So
And
yeah,
that
so
all
we
went well,
really
didn't
it?
we really did want them to feel nice and
It does.
and
Well,
like
it
a
definitely
like
does.
a home. That was a big part of the purpose behind building like this. It also allowed us to build in phases as opposed to you can't build part of a commercial building all at
Right.
once, and then have to do more later.
So-
So we costed out. It was fairly less expensive. I mean, like there was a significant cost difference for building this way.
Right.
Part of the reason is it took us out of commercial building code and into residential building code, which we didn't even have
Right. I'm gonna step
code
behind you there and get
to
that.
build this small of houses at the time. So we had to kind of take what we had, and our planning department was really great to work with us and try to find what would work.
You mentioned that the refrigerator would be the one thing. Anything else that you think that you changed as you went along that you thought, oh, we need to do this? Because I don't think they have to all be identical. I mean, if you
They
get
don't
donuts,
have to all be identical. I wouldn't think so at all. We were very fortunate that this beautiful floor was donated to us. This is as nice as this is what I have in my home Right now it's ceramic tile,
Mm-hmm.
so it's virtually indestructible, and it clean.
And
You
it
can,
looks nice.
yeah, and it looks beautiful. And the same, for the exterior, we really wanted it to look good. So that's probably the only thing I
No
could-
smoking?
We don't allow smoking inside. No.
They do have back doors, so they have access.
Yeah,
Imagine
we
you'd have
fenced
to.
it- put the fence in recently to allow the kids up, because most of the outside units are kids, so that they could play in a backyard if they wanted to and feel more secure from the rest of
Right.
the group.
So how do they get accepted into this?
So we have an application process.
Uh-huh.
So they have to come and apply. The
Right.
only two things that screen people out, of course, are violent offenses. Either, either physical or sexual violent offenses, and or like distribution of drugs.
Right.
We will look at stuff like if it's longer than 10 years old and there's been no problems in between there.
Sure.
We can make exceptions to
Right.
that, but it has to be a long time ago.
Right.
So they come and apply. We have a housing director that reviews it first and says, yes, I've reviewed this person's background. They can move on to the next step. And then they kind of just go on a list. And then when the next appropriate unit comes available, either a single unit or a family, then we just go to the next group on the list. Now, in that time, though, just because they're on the list, we're also connecting them with other resources. So we don't want to
Absolutely.
just say, like,
Yep.
good luck, I hope things work out until you have a house,
Right.
So we're working with them through our ESG program. We're working through other kinds of housing solutions for them.
Okay. Pretty good.
For example, we have a home, and she's almost finished her degree, low housing.
Right.
And so if that house ever comes vacant, I could probably just call and slide one right over. I have a 3-bedroom, 1,200 square foot house.
Here in Norman?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow.
And it's been housed with low housing in it.
Yeah. I didn't know. I knew you guys used to have quite a bit of housing up here, but
It was, some of it was sold prior to me coming.
yeah, I remember all of that.
But thank God that's all gone.
Yeah.
So how many of these do you have?
We have 32 here.
32,
We have
okay.
16 that are this size or
Right.
a little bit larger,
Uh-huh.
and then 16 that are the single resident ones. I'm going to try to take you one of
Okay,
those. So
very good.
they're all occupied, and I
Yeah.
didn't get a chance to.
And all this was donated? Or?
So everything was donated except for some of the
Wow.
things that.
I buy new mattresses when I just.
Oh yeah, we put new mattresses
Yeah.
in
I
too.
don't
That's the
know
one
how to
thing.
pick up the
If
mattress.
we try to trace every piece of furniture back to where it originally came from, so we're
Right.
not bringing bed bugs in or something.
Right. Absolutely.
We have a pretty strict rule that they cannot bring their
Yeah.
own furniture in because of bed bug issues. But
Right.
like something like blankets or something that the throw pillows they could put in the dryer and wash
Mm-hmm.
before bringing in. We have to be very careful about bed bugs.
Now, how long have they been here? The house?
Just almost 2 years.
Okay. I mean, they look very new and look very nice.
So we do have, one of the things we do is, so the volunteer group that adopted this unit this is their second family. So
Right.
the first family came in, worked really hard, moved out on their own. They actually bought a little house recently, so
Right.
they're doing great.
Right.
The volunteer group comes in, cleans it, touches up the paint, replaces little things if they need to be replaced. So they signed on to that whenever they
Do they bring
made-
furniture sometimes? if
They will bring all the new furniture in, because the person takes everything with them when they leave. So
Right.
they'll bring all the new stuff in and get it set up for the next family.
I'm gonna be honest. I could see Advitas doing one, OBU doing one, Life Church doing one.
Oh yeah.
But think about, I
Like,
think we could
our
get.
Life Church here does several. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's
Yeah.
good. That's great.
So it was very easy to get that piece of it done.
I can see that real easy.
Because they
Yeah.
really, for the most part, only do one a year, and
We have some churches that are in our homeless group, and I could see.
yeah, and they don't have to be
sponsoring.
new items. Like most of the stuff came from somebody's house, but
I think that'd
as
be
long as
cool.
we could trace it back to
Sure.
somewhere, we've inspected it for bed bugs, and
Right.
it can come in. So
There you go.
I could even work on Marco's furniture. See if we can
you
get
go.
them to do one.
There you
I mean,
go.
just-
That'd
What
be
kind of
great.
operating overhead do you guys have?
So our entire operating budget for the whole for all of food and shelter is $1.25 million.
Okay.
The village has cost us about $300,000 to operate.
Okay.
That includes the case management stuff, which is probably the greatest expense. The utilities are not really higher than our old shelter, which was half of the size of this one, but it's because they're newer. They were
More
made
efficient,
very
yeah.
efficient. They were insulated like crazy, and so So yeah, it's very quiet in here. Like,
Well, did
you
y'all
know,
operate generally on grants? I'm sure some contributions.
we are about 80% community funded and about
Okay.
20% grant funded. So we
Okay.
don't get a lot of grants at all.
Okay.
And
Do you have some recurring big donors?
yeah,
Or, okay.
we do. We have probably 2,000 recurring donors that give us
Wow.
money every year. You know, like
Wonderful.
we're part of their monthly budget or annual
Right.
budget. You
Right.
know,
Mhm.
and so that's kind of how we make our money. But
Wonderful.
we just had an event. And that was a new event for us because we don't do a lot of events either. We're
Right.
just kind of get out in the community, bring
Mhm.
the community in. And the event was to try to get major donors to donate an annual pledge of the operating cost of one of these cottages, which we identified as $5,000.
Okay.
And so, so we got about half of those pledged for 2020 already.
Mhm.
And
That's great.
So one of these, $5,000 a year.
Yep,
Really,
to take somebody off the streets.
that's amazing.
It costs
Yeah.
way more than that to put them in jail.
Yeah,
right.
it does.
It costs way more than that
Yeah.
to keep them on the streets. Like, and, you know, because when I take you inside, I'll talk to you about some of all the other in betweens that we do with people.
Right.
But we've got medical care for them through volunteers. You know, so we're reducing their ER costs, or visits. We're reducing their arrests. We're reducing so many things that drain from the city.
Right.
So yeah, it's a really good investment.
Mhm.
Do you guys have a long wait list right now?
We do have a pretty good. I mean, there are a lot of people. Once they were built, like a flood of people from the community came.
Sure.
Many of which really didn't qualify for homeless housing. They were like, I don't really like where I'm living now,
Right.
or I'd really like to not have to pay rent.
Well, gee.
Yeah.
Me too.
Me too, right?
Yeah.
And so we screened a lot of those people out, and now
Yeah.
we're kind of really to the place where we're just talking to people who are really homeless and really in
Right.
need. We use an assessment that I don't know if you guys use in Shawnee called the VI SPDAT.
They do.
And so we use the VI SPDAT even with families, and that helps us identify if somebody needs to just go out through rapid rehousing or they need long-term housing. And so
Right.
we use that to kind of help as well.
Right.
So, like, I watched a lady with a shopping cart, and it was very emphatic because I got here early waiting. And, you know, you could tell she didn't want to be approached. She was kind of alienated, but she did stop and go in, and she didn't stay, and then she took off again. So,
Yeah.
where are they going? Are there still?
We have a day shelter inside. The soup kitchen and day shelter is
That's
inside.
probably what she's
so-
coming to.
Yeah, so that's where we'll go next, and I'll show you all
Okay.
that. And then,
Sounds good.
So yeah, and then
We have
can
some
go
that
into
have
our
wheelchairs
conference room.
and shopping carts, and
Oh, yeah.
We have
Oh,
three.
yeah.
We have 3 units. We're going to pass one, and then we'll see some as we go inside that are wheelchair accessible, all wheelchair accessible. So.
Do
Okay.
you guys have any plans for a second phase at this time?
Our planning was actually in 3 phases. So to build this, and that's what we had the money for at the beginning, and then after a few years, we can expand to the south. So we're in conversations for lots of different things. One is to get a food resource center, which I understand you guys have a food resource center in Shawnee. So we want to build a food resource center here in Norman, which we may use some of that land for, but we're trying to get the north side land for, which would be, I think, a better
Well,
location.
we invite you to
So-
come look. It's called Community Market.
Yeah, I've heard it's great.
Yeah, it's an
Yeah,
amazing
I've heard it's great.
organization.
And then there's one called Our Daily Bread in Stillwater.
Yeah, I've heard it's that one too.
Yeah, I've been to both.
I'm gonna pop in here real quick. I get the first question a little bit of that.
It's funny, different cities, Stillwater's restaurants all donate. And so there's wonderful donations from Walmart and Panera Bread and Stillwater. That doesn't occur in Shawnee, but it's just like different restaurant managers. Yeah, different clients. We see that too. We get a lot of that stuff too.
Oh, yeah, that is, isn't it?
We gotta get the doors replaced on it because somebody popped the glass out of them. These 2 are the bigger units. You can tell by looking at these 2. These have larger. It's one extra bedroom, a little bit larger. Oh, look at that little price. So that one's been, yeah, so that's who paid to build it. Yeah, yeah.
And you said the cost to build one was 20-something?
What kind of policies for the blue?
25?
I think so.
Man, that's amazing.
It is. You can't even build the mobile ones for that.
No, you
On the
can't.
wheels.
I think
This
she
is-
said that went down too because all of the brick and the flooring was
Right.
donated.
Yeah. Wow.
Okay.
areas of Shawnee that, they're not necessarily, we can't put big residential homes, we could do, you might, take advantage of.
You got one that's, for a wheelchair or something there.
Something happened.
Very easily done. Wow. It definitely has a
I like it.
kind of a nice little neighborhoodly feel to it, doesn't it?
Yes, that's good.
I mean, it.
The Wadley family did that one.
Uh-huh.
The family was responsive.
First Presbyterian Church. Well, this is.
These boxes designed, those were before the glass got popped out of library.
Oh, okay.
Well, this is nothing like I expected, Rebecca.
It's so nice.
Nothing like I expected.
I love when they have the different colored front doors.
Oh, no.
Let me run and grab a key to this one, because I do want you to see what the single resident one looks like, and I'll be right back.
Okay.
We change the locks out every time, unless it's some reason that we don't have a need to do that. We do. Most of our people leave amicably,
Right.
and they turn their keys in, and we
Right.
kind of trust that they didn't do anything crazy.
There's a playground.
Yeah.
Is there a community garden, or have you thought?
We do have a community garden. It's actually behind the fence, kind of, and so there's a gate to it. It's not pretty right now because everything's dead. But
Right.
just stay right here. I'm gonna go grab
Okay.
it.
I'm going to go look at the playground.
You know, the community garden thing with community renewal.
Uh-huh.
Tie-in, do you see, I mean,
Oh, I see a lot of tie-ins.
lots of them.
There's so many different.
Around, even
Ways
around
you
the
could
friendship
tie
house,
things
you
in.
could- You see, the friendship house could be part of it.
I do like all the little books. I like the doors all different colors. We were talking about it, Rebecca and I. Is it gonna be the same color thing, I wonder?
Yes, it is.
I like the little stainless steel. I mean, it's very
Uh-huh.
practical. Oh no. Yeah. So this one is what all the single resident ones look like. The only thing different in the wheelchair accessible ones is that's open, so you can wheel in there and wheel into the shower. So this is like a studio. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, it's 285 square feet. The volunteer groups have set them up differently. Like this one has a kind of a living area and a bed you can sleep on. Some of them do soak beds, and they can pull it out at night. Some of them do a larger bed and a small chair, which works fine too. But yeah, they kind of get set up for one person. We have had a couple staying in one of these before, which was worked out okay for them.
Is that a closet or the water
It's hot
heater?
water tank, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
So-
there is very little storage, and that is kind of a
So where do you think
downside
this
of it.
person puts his or her clothes?
Yeah, probably in that little chest over there. That's my guess.
Was that done intentionally, or if you could redo, you guys might
I
have
would
some
like,
closet?
yeah, I mean, of course, more storage would be great. Just, we bought plans that we used and they just didn't include it, and we made some, we had some conversations about it. We had to meet city code, we had to get rid of some certain things because there had to be enough open space, like this kind of space in each of the waves, and so we had to do some modifications and give up a few things here and there to make things open enough to meet city code or what the minimums that we needed to meet. So
Who's the Broad Squad book
so that's the volunteer group that adopted this cottage, and they're the ones who come in and paint it and clean it up and bring all the furniture in. So Mike that lives here, he was homeless on the streets of Norman for about 15 years.
and his best friend died on the streets, and he used that as a motivation to go into treatment and got clean. And when he came out of treatment, he came down and said, I don't really know what I'm going to do now. And all we could think of was like, he probably should not go back to the streets, and so he lives here. Does so much maintenance for us. Like, he does all of our cleanup, all of our grounds work, just voluntarily, just does it. So, yeah, he's doing really great.
So I'm going to go into Christmas mode.
Yeah.
What do you do? Do they have family or support groups, or do you supply Christmas, or are there any little programs or people that want to come in and do things like that? Or?
So this group, for each house, will do some type of Christmas for the person that lives here. They'll bring over a birthday gift. They'll bring over, just little things here and there.
Some of them don't have Christmas trees. Some of them,
Yeah.
Right.
The reason I'm picking your brain is that we have a group that does it for veterans, and churches that pick up and take gifts to veterans that they don't think have any family.
Right.
I could see them adopting a group like this too.
Yeah. So
he does have a wooden Christmas tree right behind him.
a little Christmas tree and a poinsettia.
Yes, he does.
So,
But no gift.
They probably just have a broth, and we still got some time.
I'm going into my own mode. You're gonna watch me, just because we have church groups that would want to say,
Oh yeah.
Oh, I'm sure.
We have to sometimes, and I worked at Positive Tomorrows in Oklahoma City before I came here, and we would see our kids just get bombarded with presents, and we made a kind of a conscious decision to say their parents can't sustain this when they're not with us any longer, and that's pretty much
hard.
That's hard.
And I ran Metro Career Academy.
Oh yeah, that's right.
The alternative school up there.
Yeah.
So I had 170 kids that didn't get Christmas sometimes, but mainly teenagers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we do allow our folks to get adopted, but we don't allow them, we don't allow just lots and lots and lots of things. It's reasonable.
Do they have any mentoring or a support group that, hey, I've done it?
Yeah, we do, and we're going to go inside and sit into our classroom where I'm going to talk to you about all that kind of stuff too. That way you can kind of see what. So we also have, on top of this housing, we're the soup kitchen and the day shelter for Norman. Okay.
It's locked.
So that was how much square feet was that one?
285.
Then the first one you showed us was
About 550.
and then the residential's like the 2 bedrooms is
So the 2-bedroom was 550. Then we have 680, which is the 3-bedroom. So that's for a family up to 8 can stay there. But we only have 2 of those.
So 550 for 4.
Uh-huh.
And then what was the
680.
680.
for
Yeah,
up to
for 8.
8.
The last couple things I'll point out
That'd be
here is
cozy,
so
wouldn't
we do have Wi-Fi through our whole campus.
Better
We have
than
this
on the
high-powered
street.
system installed
Yeah,
that
for
boosted
sure,
all of
especially
campus,
on
so
the
you can get
school
Wi-Fi through this whole campus. And
Wow.
then we installed these things. These are digital antennas.
Right.
So we got them for $100, and a friend of mine installed them for free, and they get about 60 channels, and they don't cost us a bill. There's no bill.
washer and dryer.
So that's just
But, we don't
broadcast
like it out here,
television.
Yeah. Well, it's not a coin operated like that. But we have a room that has one for in it.
So these are just broadcast over the air antennas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like the old, it's like the
Yeah.
big
Oh
red
yeah,
so
yeah, yeah.
on your TV.
Yeah.
And this is how you help.
Let me tell you, that works.
After 3, it turns over to residents. After 3, it turns over to residents. So, this room opens at 8 every day.
Right.
We serve breakfast and lunch every day of the year to anybody who wants to come. Most of the people who come are homeless directly from the streets or live in our program.
Right.
But you saw they have kitchens. They don't have to be here, but they have access to our food pantry, of course.
Right.
And they can come through
Yeah.
if they wish to.
How would you like Bugle Green?
I already told you I don't have a hybrid.
I do.
Okay.
So, you, Larry.
it's a multi-purpose room that we use for a lot of different things. We have, this is where our medical clinic comes, so when we have our nurse practitioners and our doctors come in twice a month, they come in here and turn this into a clinic, so they triage in our front office, and then they provide services in here, screenings and services in here.
They actually do like check over physical checkups.
Yeah, they do. They're responding to cold and flu and stuff like that, but also people that live with us that have chronic illnesses that that don't have access to primary care, they can monitor that stuff.
And are those volunteer doctors, are they coming out of Northern Regional or?
No, there's local community people who wanted to do it. And so, but we also have a wide range of support services in here for the people who live here. So we have AA, NA groups that meet here. We have life skills, parenting classes. We're about to start nutrition classes. We just did a survey with our residents and our guests to try to figure out what more we could do.
Right.
And the thing that came up was computer classes. So I've met with some people who are gonna bring laptops over once a week and do a computer class starting next year.
There's
So
a new superintendent, Brian Rutman.
at Marmon, yeah. I haven't met him yet, but I did know that
I worked with him for years. I worked at Metro Tech, and he would be real receptive to this.
yeah.
And
So we work mostly with the higher program, which is the GED group. We have a lot of folks that when they come in, that's one of their first goals is to get their GED.
Right.
And so we work very closely with that group.
Is Greg Grusendorf, he runs an NA program here. His wife was on my board, I didn't know. He's a retired fireman, Norman fireman, and he's all over the NA stuff.
Yeah, ours is Michael Ridgway. He runs our group, and his stuff, like he does it for prisons. Like he goes into Lexington and does it in prisons, and he's kind of developed a step program that's really geared toward people who are homeless. So there's just some specific things you have to talk about differently. So that's who does ours here. But you'd ask if what their requirements are. So we do have them pay a small rent. It's like $25 or $50 for a family, or $25 for a single person. And it doesn't make enough money to cover the cost of anything, but it's to help them start building the skill of paying rent.
Right.
Many of these folks have never had to do that. And so it's like, this is the due date, this is when it's turned in, and we just use it for extra things for the village.
Have them kind of sign a contract?
Yeah, they sign a program agreement, and it details all the rules and all the expectations and all the things we're gonna do for them and with them. And their only real requirements are that they attend case management meetings. That's not optional. So the reason somebody would be asked to leave is if they committed a violent act or committed a serious crime while living here, like selling drugs.
Right.
That's happened once since we lived here. So it's not a very common occurrence that we kick people out for things.
Right.
We're very fortunate that most people come through and they do really great. There are people that move in and they don't like the accountability, and they choose to leave on their own, and that's fine too. They don't take all the stuff with them, and we would help them get into their own housing if that were possible, but most of these folks aren't working or couldn't do that. So for the most part, we try to treat it like it's their house. It's your home, you take care of it, but like any place you live, someone's gonna come through every now and then and inspect, and we take care of all the pest control and the utilities, but we're gonna come through and do inspections, and we do that usually monthly, but sometimes twice a month if there are ongoing issues. And if they're not keeping it clean, then the notice goes to the case manager, and the case manager uses that as a learning experience to teach them how to clean. And we have some that hoard, and we work on that kind of stuff as what's necessary to keep. When you've been poor for a very long time, most of your life, hoarding is very natural.
Right.
Don't know when I'm going to get these 10 sweaters again, so that's something we struggle with a lot, is hoarding. What other questions do you guys have for me? I have, I can email you, or I may have been on a group email with all of you. I'll have to look. But I can email you the plans that we have.
That'd be great.
Show just, you can,
That'd be
you
great.
can show them and visually show them.
Absolutely, yeah.
And then operationally, you have an office here. Do your case managers have an office? So how many staff is here? Like
We
right
have a staff of 9 total. One of those persons is me, so I don't do case management. One person runs the food program, and then we have one person who's like our office and properties manager, so she kind of helps with some of the business stuff, and then she manages all of our, this is one of our 3 properties, so we actually have 2 other properties in Norman that has housing. So she manages all of those, which is about 80 housing units total, so that's a big job. And then everyone else is a case manager.
So what are the other housing units like?
They are more traditional housing.
Okay.
So we bought apartment complexes and turned
Okay.
them into supportive housing programs.
Right.
Do you have individual houses like
We
1100?
do have some scattered sites, yeah. We have, well, we don't have any scattered site houses. Ours are all apartments, but we do have some scattered sites.
The people that live in those houses that are like family 2 and 3 bedroom, are they required to come to meetings here, or
No,
how do you do?
usually our case management will be done at their house if they're not living here. So if they choose to come here, that's fine, because then maybe they want to come to our food pantry or our receive some other services here. But they're usually it's done. The case managers work in the field.
I'm working with a group of bankers that Mid-First Bank, and they are wanting to come to places like this and do some financial literacy training.
Oh yeah,
And may be able to.
yeah, definitely. That's
Could we
one
sit
thing
down and talk about that?
Yeah.
What we would want is we want to service you. We're going to track it in COCA's numbers, just that we provide education.
Yeah.
And Mid-First is doing it because it's one of their ventures.
Yeah, that's great. And we would, what we really need is people to teach financial literacy with people who are very poor. So we used to have a program that we called Working with What You Got. And it's, it really just addresses the basics of how to take this little bit of money and leverage community resources to get through the month.
And this group has already gone to Connie Tripp's first day.
Okay,
And
yeah.
So they get that, and then they said to me, Barbara, can you find some others?
Yeah.
And so
Sure, send them my way, that'd be great.
I'm working, girl. I'm working.
There you go. There you
I'll
go.
help you do that.
That'd be great. Yeah, we've had people offer that in the past income, and then they want to talk about saving for retirement and things like that, and that's just really outside of where our folks are.
That's right. We went to the Friendship House in Shawnee, and I had planned on having a whole room full, and only 3 showed up because they were afraid that in their mind bankers wear suits and they're men and
Right.
they talk about money and they
Yep.
don't understand anything about what it like to live in Shawnee or in
Right.
the Friendship House.
Yep.
Who Mid-First brought was a single working mother who worked herself in college, and the women loved
There
it.
you
So
go.
we told the 3 women, you go back and
Yeah,
tell
bring
them.
them back to
Bring them
Yeah.
back. So it's a process
Yeah.
in getting them to feel trust.
Yeah, for sure.
So we can do that. I'll get that going.
Yeah.
So obviously these people have to work if they're going to pay rent.
Yeah, everybody's goal is different. So some people come in and maybe they're not employable due to a disability. There was a man in a wheelchair out there.
Right.
So he lives in one of our cottages, and he's severely. So we're working with him to get him approved for disability income.
Right.
So if that is necessary, that's our plan that we go with. It's our last. If somebody's employable, we would rather them be employed.
Right.
Because you can't live on disability
No.
stably.
No.
So we start with what's the obstacle that got you into homelessness in the first place? Is it an untreated mental health issue? Is it job skills or addiction? So we start what got you into homelessness in the first place, and then we kind of work from there toward housing stability. So once they kind of get that first thing tackled, it's really most people, and you guys probably see this too at COCA, most people are very self-motivated to get better.
Do you have any vets from Goodwill with Michael? Is he?
Yeah, we don't have anybody housed here through them, but he's provided services here twice a week, so he's here on every.
He's been coming down to Shawnee and helping with Shawnee, and he's helped go do outreach. He actually went into the woods where some of the homeless were
Yeah,
living,
he loves
looking
to go
for
out and
veterans.
outreach.
Yeah, he's done that. And then he and I are looking at a facility out in the city, which will be housing. We may pull them from Shawnee and go there, we don't know yet. It's just baby steps. So, okay.
Yeah, we have kind of a priority on housing. Veterans is our top priority. So if someone identifies as a veteran, they rise to the top of our list. Battered women, we try to rise them to the top of the list. So there's specific kinds of things. But
Right.
And have you met Kayla yet?
I haven't. Some of my coworkers have. But
She's a doll. And
Yeah.
she's going to try to work really hard. And so I may invite her to come over and just introduce,
come
because she's
over.
right across the street right now. I should have brought her, but I didn't want to overwhelm you. So
That's okay.
that's my new county manager for Cleveland County.
Okay, I knew you said you had a new person.
Yeah, she's 23 and she's going to solve the world.
There you go. That's what we want.
I remember
what
feeling
we
like
want.
that too. Is there anything else I was really, and Shawnee has like a huge community heart. Like I know so many people from there. So I was so surprised how quickly our community rallied around this idea.
Right.
And this is large. Like this is a lot of housing, and maybe you guys start with 10, or like one of the benefits of building them like this is that you can build as you go.
Right.
And they don't have to be done all at once.
I'm going to ask you a tough question. So let's say that one that you had to kick out. Where do you think they go? Do they go to a village? Or are they in the woods? I mean, we kind of know
This
where some
person
of our
returned to
time.
homelessness, unfortunately. But yeah, he had beat the snot out of his wife, and we just weren't allowed to stay.
No.
She stayed, the kids stayed, but he was not allowed to be here any longer.
Yeah.
And that was the right thing to do.
Yep.
Oh, I know.
But yeah, he returned to homelessness, and I don't know where he went after that.
So when Michelle gets him back in that database,
Yeah, he
are they
goes
just kind of
back.
tracking him?
Yeah, he just goes back on our writing list, and we just start looking at it from there. As far as I know, he's probably not even in Norman any longer.
Okay. I was wanting to have a realistic.
Yeah, so when someone returns to homelessness, we have to report that if they're in our house, and we have to report it back to Michelle.
So do you participate in those meetings with Michelle?
I don't go to the Friday meetings.
Right.
So every Friday, the case management staff goes. So the people
Okay.
that work with me.
So your
here,
organization
they
does
go.
that.
I go to 2 meetings a month
Right.
with them, but I don't go to every Friday meeting.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. That makes sense that you'd be
Yeah.
involved in that.
Yeah, I don't provide direct services, so I would have no.
Kind of like me.
Yeah,
I know.
yeah. If they asked me about a specific person, I would say,
I don't know who that is.
no idea. I'll have to ask. Yeah.
Well, I know you knew a few here.
I know almost everybody here. I don't follow their cases and stay involved in what's going on at their situations.
I'm in 6 counties, so I understand.
Oh.
I barely can cite an example sometimes. It's hard. I mean, it sounds
Yeah,
hard.
6 counties. Yeah, that would be very tough.
Very tough. Well, I thank you for our time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm so glad you guys came down, and
Thank
I'm
you.
happy to help in any way, shape, or form. Like I said, I will email at minimum to you those plans that show all of the different
Can we see
housing.
where your office? I'm just trying to get an idea of what this complex here looks like.
Yeah. So yeah, I'll just walk you out through. We have back through there is all of the case management offices.
How are you?
These are bonus offices, so where like veteran services comes and provides services here.
Right.
We have other agencies.
And that's
that
the
do.
back door you came out.
That's the back door I
I'm
can
making my logistics now.
Let me grab my cards for you
Okay.
guys, though. Okay.
How are you all?
Wonderful.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Coming to look at the shelter.
Uh-huh.
Yes. Good.
Yeah.
Great.
The city commissioner, city planner, city manager.
Oh, wow. Well, welcome.
Thank you very much. It's been good.
Yeah. We really
Thank you very much.
You've got me, but I'll go on anyway. So here's what that is. This is where our volunteers check in. We use it's dead. I gotta find the charger for it. So we use a volunteer hub system so that they can register themselves online to
Right.
volunteer, come
Right.
in, check in, it tracks their hours.
Yeah, that's great.
So yeah, we use a lot of volunteers. This is
Oh,
a big place. So there's
yeah.
only 9 of us that work here, most of which are out in the field at all times. So
Right.
Becky's a volunteer from Summit Church.
Yeah.
She comes
very
every
good.
Tuesday, and the Summit Church is amazing. They're throwing our community Christmas party.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
Awesome.
all right.
Thanks so
Well,
much.
yeah, I'll be in touch with those plans, and if there's anything I can do through your process, I would be happy to help out for sure.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
We work really closely with our city planning staff as
Uh-huh.
well, so that's kind of. My husband was on our city council for a long time, so I know too much about that whole process.
That's fun.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, he thought so too. Until he his head nearly popped off one night, and I was like, "Okay, you're done. Like, you can't
Yeah.
do that anymore."
Yeah.
So, yeah.